The day a pioneer farmer family loses their mother and wife in the late 1800s and early 1900s in Washington state is steeped in tragedy, practicality, and the heavy burden of survival. The family lives on a modest homestead, perhaps a small log cabin or a clapboard house surrounded by farmland. The air is crisp, the winter looms or is already present, adding to the somber atmosphere. Life is harsh, and survival is a daily challenge, with every family member contributing to the household. The day begins like any other, but with a sad undertone if the mother has been sick for some time. Her illness, likely pneumonia, childbirth complications, or an infection, has lingered due to the lack of proper medical care. The family huddles around her bedside as her breath grows weaker. The father, weathered by years of hard labor, keeps a stoic face for the children, though grief lines his features. The oldest daughter, often tasked with assisting the mother, takes on the role of a caregiver. She holds her mother's hand, whispering reassurances while the younger children sit quietly, confused and frightened. When the moment finally comes, the mother's passing is met with a heavy silence. The father bows his head, and the children weep quietly. There is no time for prolonged mourning, as there is still work to be done, animals to feed, fire to tend, and meals to prepare. Practicality eventually takes over. The father and the eldest son begin preparations for burial, as there is no undertaker nearby. The frozen ground must be broken with pickaxes and shovels, a task that requires immense physical effort. The children help where they can, fetching tools or holding lanterns if daylight fades. Inside the home, the mother's body is washed and dressed in her best clothing, often a simple handmade dress. Neighbors, if any live nearby, may arrive to help prepare the body and console the family. A pine box is hastily crafted, often by the father or a neighbor, as store-bought coffins were a luxury they could not afford. Meals are simple and somber, perhaps just bread and stew eaten in silence. The children, unsure how to process their grief, cling to one another. As the sun sets, the family gathers for a brief, heartfelt ceremony, led by the father or possibly a neighbor if no minister is available. He speaks of the mother's virtues, her hard work, her kindness, and her sacrifices for the family. The children lay wildflowers on the grave, even if it's winter and the blooms are dry or sparse. The burial is a stark reminder of the harshness of life on the frontier. There is no headstone, just a wooden cross or marker carved with her initials. The father, standing by the grave, silently vows to carry on, knowing he must for the sake of their children. That night, the house would feel unbearably quiet, the mother's absence being very noticeable. The eldest daughter steps in to take the role of caretaker, tending to the younger siblings and helping the father. The family does not have the luxury of extended mourning. By the next morning, life resumes its relentless pace. The father and older children return to their chores, their grief tucked away as survival demands their focus. Yet the loss of the mother leaves a permanent void. Her memory carried forward in the songs she sang, the quilts she sewed, and the love she gave. This day, though devastating, is not unique in the lives of pioneer families, where death was a frequent and intimate part of existence. It underscores their resilience and the enduring bonds of family amidst relentless hardship. In the weeks following the death of the mother, the Pioneer family faces a profound emotional and logistical shift. Their grief is compounded by the harsh realities of frontier life, which demands that survival take precedence over prolonged mourning. The first days after the burial are marked by a heavy, somber silence. The mother's absence is glaring. No warm smile to greet the family in the morning. No comforting presence by the hearth at night. Her chores, once carried out with tireless care, now fall to the family. The household is thrown into disarray as everyone struggles to adapt. The father takes on tasks the mother once handled, such as organizing meals or caring for the younger children. These tasks feel awkward and overwhelming for him, as he is unaccustomed to the domestic realm. The eldest daughter, often in her early teens, steps into a maternal role. She rises earlier than usual to prepare simple meals or tend to the younger siblings, also to keep the household in order. Her shoulders are burdened not with just new responsibilities, but with the weight of her own grief. The younger children, confused and sad, cling to their older siblings for comfort. They may regress, needing constant reassurance or attention. The father buries his emotions as survival demands his focus. His work on the farm intensifies as there is now one less pair of hands to help. Late at night, when the children are asleep, he sits by the fire, staring into the flames, quietly mourning the loss of his life partner. If the family is part of a small settlement, neighbors come to offer their help during the first week or two. Women from nearby homesteads may bring food or help with household tasks, while men assist with heavy farm labor. However, these visits taper off as the neighbors return to their own demanding lives. For families isolated on the frontier, this period is even lonelier. Without outside help, they must rely solely on one another, depending on the eldest daughter's burden and the father's resolve to keep the family together. The father inevitably becomes quieter and more withdrawn, his focus solely on providing for the family. The eldest daughter starts to exhibit signs of stress as the weight of her new role grows heavier. She may cry silently at night, overwhelmed by the loss of her mother and the sudden responsibilities thrusted upon her. The younger children alternate between moments of sadness and bursts of energy, trying to make sense of their new reality. They may express their grief through tantrums, nightmares, or by seeking constant attention. Without a structured way to process their loss, the family leans on the rhythms of daily life to distract them from their pain. Meals become simpler and less frequent as the family adjusts to the loss of the mother's careful touch. The once tidy home begins to show signs of neglect, with clutter accumulating and clothes going unmended. The youngest children may wander the homestead unsupervised at times, as the older siblings and father are busy with chores. If winter has set in, the added strain of keeping the cabin warm and food stores sufficient looms large. The father must ensure the family's survival while grappling with his own grief. As the days turn into weeks, small reminders of the mother's presence begin to surface. Her apron still hangs by the door, or the quilt she mended rests on the bed. A recipe she taught the eldest daughter is attempted, though it doesn't taste quite the same. The family starts to share stories together, keeping her memory alive. These moments of remembrance are bittersweet, bringing both comfort and pain. As the weeks stretch into months and the family gradually settles into their new routine, though the void left by the mother is never truly filled, Over time, the eldest daughter fully assumes the mother's role, often sacrificing her own childhood. The father becomes even more focused on the practicalities of survival, though his quiet moments of grief persist. The younger children grow up more quickly, learning to take on responsibilities to ease the family's burden. The mother's death becomes a defining moment for the family, shaping their dynamics, their resilience, and their shared bond. Though life continues, the loss remains a shadow over their lives, a reminder of the fragility of existence on the frontier in eastern Washington in the late 1800s and early 1900s.